always do that. Okay, there we go. So welcome everybody. I think a lot of you know who I am, but I'm Carrie Stark, the State 4-H Director. And there was a team of us that have been talking about youth mental health, and we had put together some programs for youth during the COVID stuff. And we decided we also needed to do some training, or some, not really training, but a discussion around youth mental health and how can we support our youth around this area. And so the team consisted of Bill Evans, who is an extension faculty member with the College of Education and Department of Human Development and Family Science. And Bill, if you want to say hi, just so everybody knows.
Hi.
And Pam Payne, who is a faculty member in the same college, in the same department. So Pam.
Hi, and just as an FYI, Carrie, we got an updated name in our college. We're now the College of Education and Human Development.
Oh, okay, thank you. I had not heard that official change, so thank you. And Sarah Tavilacek, who is our Rural 4-H Program Manager. So Sarah, oh, you're muted.
Hello.
And Nora Luna, who is our Urban 4-H Program Manager.
Hello, everybody.
And Brian Lucky is a graduate student in the College of Education and Human Development now in the Department of Human Development and Family Science, working on a PhD, and he's been working with 4-H in Nevada for a couple of years on evaluation. But Brian, say hi.
Hello. Hi.
All right. So welcome everybody for joining us. Just so everybody knows too, there's a couple of us that do have storms going around outside, and it's still brewing. I've got rain now at my house. So if we lose power, hopefully not all the presenters lose power at one time. So somebody else will take over, but we just want to give everybody that heads up. So we're going to start with a couple of, we just want to get a sense of how everybody's doing. You know, we're talking about mental health, so we want to know how your mental health is. And I'm going to preference this with, we did discover on the last call, when you are voting in this, you may have to scroll it down just a little bit until you see the submit button, and then you can submit your score or the way you feel.
So is this just how I feel about current status with 4-H, my life overall?
Life overall, just how are you doing? So 1 is extremely stressed and struggling, to 7 is not stressed and you're seeing lots of opportunities. Yep. So yeah, it's just general.
Thank you.
Yep. We'll give people just another minute or so. Okay, and then so we can see how we're doing. We're pretty stressed, you know, okay. And then we'd like to know from, and I know we have some staff on here too, but from a perspective of a volunteer, how do you think your 4-H personnel are doing in the county related to mental health? And these are all completely anonymous, so nobody knows how they, who answers. Got about half of the people that have voted. Okay. All right, so seeing that, it looks like from your perspective, there's a couple of our 4-H personnel that are pretty stressed out, but for the most part, doing okay. Okay, and then the last question is, how do you think our youth are doing in our communities that you work with related to their mental health? Everybody got their last votes in? Okay. So we all think that our youth are pretty stressed and not doing so well related to mental health, which is not surprising. So, and one of the things, I'm going to close this out, but if it does not close out for you as a participant, all you have to do is just reach up and hit the X button and close it out. We've just discovered that on the last session. Don't use polls that often. So, all right, sorry, I'm trying to get through. All right, so before we get started, there's a couple of things, we wanted to lay a few ground rules for everybody. So a couple of things this has really been designed as a time for you as a volunteer to discuss where you feel the state of youth mental health in Nevada and what Extension can do to support our youth. So there's going to be a lot of discussion. It's also, you're going to be driving that discussion, but, we want to make sure that one person does not dominate the conversation. And so it's a chance to allow everybody to speak. If you don't feel comfortable speaking, like unmuting your microphone and speaking, you can, type it in the chat box. But as much as possible, we'd love to hear voices and see faces if we can. But the other piece is the discussion will not get political. If the facilitators see it moving in that direction, we're going to jump in and move it either in another direction or just cut off that conversation. So just a couple other things whoa, sorry, hit button too quick. We don't always agree. In 4-H, we talk about, we teach youth how to think, not what to think. And this is the same type of conversation. We're not going to always agree on everything, and it's okay. So, but we just have to remember not to criticize or pass judgment about another person's. We want to use our I statements. And again, we've got the chat box is available to use as a parking lot. If you have ideas or thoughts that come up that maybe aren't related to youth mental health, that during the pandemic or after the pandemic, but they fit with the discussion, go ahead and put them in the chat box. We do have a group of facilitators that will try to either address those or we will follow up with those questions. So, all right, so we're going to start we just want to know what you guys think. We're doing, if you've heard of the term SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We're going to ask questions in that manner. So here's 2 questions around the strengths. So what do you think the strengths for helping you deal with stress, what are the strengths in your community? Could be in the 4-H community, it could be in your community as a whole. And what do you think that your community or what the 4-H program is doing, what do you think separates it from other communities maybe in Nevada?
I know for our club, between the month of August and November, we end up doing 8 to 11 community-based events where the kids are out in the community, either attending community events or fundraisers or school events, the open enrollment stuff. That's all driven by the kids, and we've got a huge following in the community here that has asked us the last several years, are you bringing the kids? Are they coming out and, bringing the animals? We've gotten very positive feedback being involved in the different events out here. And that has a lot to do with the leaders in my club and the amount of kids we have who are willing to go out and do things, and the kids love it. The community loves it. We have a couple reporters who every event we go to, they're always running over and, interviewing us and doing stories about it, about the club and how much we've grown from in just a few years. So that's really great to have the community support and to have that footprint here.
Okay, other thoughts? Great. Those are good. What are we doing around what are we doing around, with all of the things that are happening? Are there strengths that are happening in your communities? Things that are happening currently with all of the COVID guidelines?
One of the things we did when this first broke out and there was the panic buying and everything is we use Band to communicate as a club. It allows us to post everything in one place. And we have a permanent posted thread there for anybody, if they didn't have toilet paper or whatever, that was where we banded together and posted what people needed and allowed us to go out and drop toilet paper off or food off for people who couldn't get out. So we filled that gap that way. I was pretty proud of the kids and the club for banding together for that.
Great. Other ideas?
You can either verbalize it or put it into the chat. We'd like to capture everyone's comments.
I'd like to say, sorry, I'm not on because I've got kids running around the video, but I'd like to say that in our community, both at our club level and the minimal events that we've been, where we've had to do social distancing, the kids really have at least had their smiley faces on even through the adversity. And that's pretty cool to me, so.
Great. All right, we can go to the next question of what do you think some of the weaknesses in your community are related to youth mental health and stress, and then what areas need improvement to remain competitive and relevant?
For us, the virtual stuff was a novelty at the beginning. It was kind of fun, but by the time we hit May, nobody wanted to participate at all anymore. The kids were done. They were burnt out being on screens all day, as crazy as that sounds, but they were, and they wanted to get back to meeting in person and working with their animals and working to go towards shows and preparing for the events that our clubs all do. So that's been our biggest weakness, is not being able to do anything.
Okay. Other ideas? What are the other weaknesses, do you think? Community as a whole too.
Can I speak?
Yep. Yep.
I'm a parent and volunteer and have 2 teenagers, and we're on 5 acres in Lyon County, rural area. And they've been doing a little bit of walking, but they're mainly glued to their tubes. I mean, their screens, but they do get bored. They do have gardening. They do have chores. They have animals. But yeah, it's been very limited what we can do as a community because of COVID. Although Carolyn did a great job of impromptuing getting a parade together in Dayton. That was a big success. My kids weren't able to make it though, but it is, and a lot that Carolyn was talking about too. Our kids go and do cleanups usually after like 4th of July out of Lahontan, and we haven't been able to do that yet. So it would be wonderful if we could get more outdoor activities starting. Those were just a couple examples of what was good and what hasn't happened yet.
Well, and just to remind everyone that under phase 2, you can have outdoor gatherings, and you can start having in-person club meetings as long as face masks and social distancing is maintained. So you can do those events, but right now, the total population for the entire event is 25 people. So you can't exceed that, even if it's a community event. But we have been hearing that clubs are getting out for hikes, for horseback riding, for dog training, and doing all of that. So those are activities that you can start doing. And if you have questions, just ask your 4-H professional and they'll guide you through it, as will this whole team right here.
Yeah, we've met with most of the families in our club. We did a COVID meeting. We offered a couple days where we could have different chunks of parents come. So we were under that limit, and have communicated that we're going to start meeting. And I've started doing some horse stuff with families one-on-one, because it's the only way I can do it without having to share equipment. But we are planning on getting stuff going next month. Something else I do want to point out, that's been a personal struggle here in my household. I'm grateful that there were virtual livestock shows for the market kids. That's fantastic. That said, we do dairy goats and horses, and there has been nothing offered to those kids. There's no, all the virtual shows have been geared towards selling the market animals. There hasn't been a quality virtual show. There hasn't been a virtual horse show offered. We've been competing in state line tax virtual horse show, along with Bishop Mule Days had a virtual horse show. But there's a large group of kids that are feeling very left out, and that happens to be one of my kids. But I'd like to see something done about that.
And those aren't things that have ever been offered at the state level anyway. Those are county-based events. So that would be something you would want to talk to county, or maybe a group of counties, about hosting something like that. The only state event we do for horse shows or any of that is Expo. So, but we could, there could be a group of counties that get together and do a virtual horse show, or do a virtual, whatever kind of show. So it's a possibility. I think it would be a great activity to do. That would kind of come into that actually leads us right into the next question of the opportunities that the community or the 4-H, both the state and the county 4-H program could offer to help youth deal with stress. So what are some of those, what are some ideas there? These virtual shows are great ideas.
Okay, I have a suggestion, because we used to have meetings, and maybe we could do virtual meetings once a week with the kids so they could participate in Zoom. My kids have never participated, to my knowledge, in Zoom. And I think it would be a great opportunity for them to even just be able to see each other's faces and hear each other's voices and have some communication going on, so they can share what they're going through and maybe get ideas from each other.
Do you guys have access to a Zoom account that you can use?
I do on my phone, and my kids both have iPhones.
And then counties can set up, many of the counties have been doing Zoom meetings, setting up Zoom meetings for clubs through the university Zoom.
It's a good idea.
Sharon, you've had that, haven't you? With your clubs? Sorry to put you on the spot, but.
Yeah, with the Zoom meetings. Yes, yeah, we did, especially in the very beginning. Now my kids and families are Zoomed out. So, but yeah, we're still doing Zoom with rabbits because obviously the situation with the rabbit hemorrhagic disease is pretty serious. So I'm still Zooming with my rabbit families and my rabbit kids. And we are going to do a virtual showmanship show for those kids so that they can finish out their project year. So we've kind of had to shift gears. But yes, we do Zoom. I usually set up the Zoom meetings for my leaders. Some of my leaders feel very comfortable doing Zoom and take the lead, and others want no part of it. So then I just kind of take the lead with them, lead them along. So, but yes.
Yeah, and Robin, can you unmute your mic and talk about the meetings in Pahrump? Because I know those have been really successful too.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
We started doing our community club meetings by Zoom. So we do that once a month, and we started a project, a food drive for the local veterans pantry. And we have some of our clubs meeting on Zoom. My club is a creative writing club, and we meet every week, except we meet Wednesdays at 5, so we're not meeting today. But it was very difficult for me to get used to. I find it extremely awkward, and but we're all getting a lot more comfortable with it now. The trouble I found is that the kids that I had in the club before this happened, that we have had a lot of meetings together in person, are still with us, but kids who've come in since then, I think it's extremely difficult to welcome those kids in the same way, and I find that they don't stick with it. I've had a few kids come and try it out and just not come back again, which I don't know how to tell if that's just like, okay, this isn't for me, or if it's just like in person in our groups when we had a new member, there was a whole different way that we could do that, and they would feel the welcoming from the other kids. And this way is much more challenging.
Great. That's a concern. To me, that would be a kind of a weakness or concern with what's happening.
It is a concern, definitely. But on the other hand, having Zoom for the group as it was and being able to keep in touch with those kids, it's one of the few social opportunities that some of them don't have any other social opportunities besides that.
Yeah. Great.
And Robin, I put it in the chat, but I don't know if you can see that because I don't know how you're connected. Now that I don't want to keep repeating myself, but clubs can start meeting in person. So you could maybe meet in a park with, your social distancing and everything, and then do a creative writing exercise that way. You wouldn't have to do it by Zoom.
We had thought of that, but it's been 115 degrees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want to go outside when it's 115?
Or in the middle of a thunderstorm.
Right?
Yeah,
but as soon as that breaks, I think we will try. As soon as that breaks, I think we'll have a park meeting and get together, because we would all love to just see each other in person again. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. And I had, and I don't know if any of the Clark County staff, I know there's a few of them on there, Clark County volunteers, I think. I know there's some staff on here. They've been doing quite a bit of virtual programming too, if they want to mention. They're actually doing a virtual small animal show for the youth in that county. So I hate to put you guys on the spot, but maybe you guys could just kind of give a couple examples. Are there? I know I'm seeing a few on.
I can do it, Carrie.
Okay.
And actually, as soon as I'm done, I'll post the link to all the events that are in one place on Eventbrite. So, but I mean, from the beginning, we've done some like art contests, different type of expressive arts contests. We have classes We've had virtual classes. We have a couple on STEM for different age groups. We have one on like college and career, like getting your resume writing, things like that. We had one for youth and parents on like preparing to apply for college. The big one that we have right now, and it's already full, but our summer stay home camp, where we're sending these kits where kids are going to do different experiments and inventions with supplies that we're sending them. They will check into Zoom every day for like an hour, but then they will do the things, you know, at home with all the supplies that we've mailed them. And let's see what else. That's it. I'll put the link, like I said, in the chat box of all the stuff that we have like open right now. And then the other thing that we've been doing just to try to keep people engaged is just different videos, like club commercials, but just highlighting the different clubs. So if anybody here wants to highlight their club, you know, send us or your county person a little video of your club. We've been posting that on Facebook. Then some of the staff has been doing things like different how-to videos, like how to set up a raised bed for growing vegetables. Our person from Logandale did something on like life on the ranch and showing all the stuff, how they raise the steers. And that's a little overview. But yeah, we've been trying to stay busy, trying to keep people engaged, and even having them get to know us as staff. So I will look for the link and put it up.
So those are examples that even as volunteers, you guys could be doing, you know, some of those activities you could be doing with your youth, or, you know, just a whole variety of things. So, okay, let's go on to the next question about what do you think are some threats to youth in your community around mental health and stress? And what do you think is happening in your community that could cause harm to youth's mental health?
I have a comment.
Okay.
I think this generation is going to suffer with a COVID trauma for the rest of their life. Just the shutdown, you know, in the beginning. I mean, everything and the way it was handled on the media and everything is like, these kids don't know whether they're coming or going, if they're going to have a future. They don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. And you are absolutely
Annabelle.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, you're absolutely correct.
14 and 15. I mean, they're like in, you know, well, they're kind of coming out of it now, but for a while, it's like they were zombies.
Yep.
And not in a good way, because they love zombies, right? But it was like they were in La La Land.
Yep.
They didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Other thoughts? What do you think are some of the other? Yeah. Go ahead, Carolyn.
All right. So again, personally, my child here, on our family vacation last month, she, you know, well, actually it was like 3 weeks ago, had a breakdown over how the school year ended and all the lost opportunities, you know, all the shows that were canceled, and all those experiences that were yanked out from under her. And we're a fairly stable home with a good network of support and family to support her. So if our stable environment is, you know, she's having issues, then the other kids in our area that aren't as fortunate as we are experiencing greater trauma. For example, I mentioned that one of the other parents who wasn't going to be able to be here tonight, her daughter, or well, granddaughter, just got out of the long-term mental health care hospital a couple weeks ago, had a breakdown tonight, and took off. So we are seeing some serious fallout from these kids not being able to socially interact in person. You know, that like I said, the virtual stuff was nice at the beginning, the Zoom meetings were nice at the beginning, but these kids are burnt out and they're chomping at the bit. They want to get busy, they want to get their hands on, they want to get out there and do things and get back to being involved.
Okay. Anybody else have thoughts on what some of the threats are?
I think that, I mean, I don't want to talk politics, but I do feel that the deep political divisions and the way that that's coming out in so many communities is also really stressful for young people at this time. It's a difficult terrain to navigate, especially if divisions happen. You know, if political divisions become apparent in groups that are close, or if that makes sense, you know, if among the people in the community, and suddenly you discover that you have polarized political views or what, it's very stressful. I mean, for everyone, but I think that it is possibly more disconcerting for young people who are still trying to figure out their place in all of this.
Yeah.
Even within families, you know, if parents have certain views and kids have others, it's very stressful, and especially with the isolation going on, and a lot of families having that hothouse atmosphere. They can't really do what they used to do. So
yeah, great.
And I think the constant changes, you know, one day it's this, the next day it's that. Even for us with work, you know, things change, and to be extremely flexible. I think, you know, it's hard as an adult to navigate that. Sometimes you get very frustrated, but youth are having a very hard time because they go to bed with one thing and they wake up with something else, or they go to bed thinking, oh, okay, we're going to start school, and then they hear, oh, no, you're not, you know. So I think those things for them are especially difficult to navigate, and they don't have the some of them don't have the ability to try to work that out, you know, that they become very frustrated, so it goes in a negative direction.
Yes. Great, thank you. Other thoughts? Okay. I'm going to briefly talk uncertainty equals stress, very much so. I think we all see that too. One of the things I'm going to talk about is back in May, National 4-H Council, which some of you know is a partner with us at the federal level. They are a national private partner. They conducted a survey. They partnered with the Harris Poll and conducted a survey of teens and looked at teen mental health. What is the state of teen mental health now? And they looked at it compared to, they actually looked at it, you know, they were looking at it at times of COVID. So I'm just going to share a few of the kind of nuggets from that survey. A couple of things that they did find was that 7 out of 10 teens are experiencing struggles with their mental health. And, you know, just as it was mentioned, you know, 64% of these teens believe that COVID-19 is going to have a lasting impact on their generation's mental health. They did, you know, I didn't say, also, they surveyed about, I think it was 1,500 youth, and about a third of those were 4-H members, and then the other group was not 4-H members. So in there are some interesting comparisons. I will be sending out, like, I'll share with everybody the full slide deck, but it's like 38 pages, and we don't want to go over all of those, but here's some of those pieces. They did show that before COVID, you know, 81% of the teens viewed mental health as a significant issue with youth in the US. And, you know, they're showing that it's even, you know, it's even magnified it more. 55% of teens said they experience anxiety in their life. 45% have experienced excessive stress. you can see 61% of the teens have said that COVID-19 pandemic has increased their feeling of loneliness. How they feel stressed. You can see that 71% said homework is how they felt that was the highest percentage for their stress levels. And then what's really interesting is 67% felt really high stress because they felt the pressure to keep their feelings to themselves, so they couldn't express their feelings to others. And it's at 65% of that uncertainty caused them stress. How they're coping, 67% of them pretend just to feel better, so they don't worry anymore. 45% try to ignore their feelings or spend more time alone. They are finding that 75% of teens are spending they're spending 75% of their waking hours on screens during this time. And that could be, like we were talking a little bit about it, and that could be, because they were also doing school at the same time. So yes, their screen time is going to increase. And that's how they're connecting with their friends. I know my own child, who's a teenager, he connects with his friends when he's playing Xbox. They're having lots of conversations. And so, or they're connecting via Snapchat or something to that effect. And so that's how they are connecting. So it can be both positive and negative in that. They're seeing opportunities. They feel 82% of youth say that America has to start talking more openly and honestly about mental health issues. I think, and that's one of the reasons why we're starting the conversations about mental health with our young people. We have to start talking about it. It's not a taboo topic. It's not, we have to make it's okay to have a mental health issue. It's fine. And, if we see those youth, we need to be able to give them, get them the help that they need. 70% wish that their school taught them more about mental health and coping mechanisms. And then you can see 79% wish that there was a more inclusive environment or safe space for people in schools to talk about mental health. Where they see this, but it could be that, maybe 4-H is a place that they feel comfortable talking to their adult volunteer, with their caring adult. And Pam, if you can share your example you shared earlier about how to frame those interactions, that would be wonderful.
So can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So one of the things that I think can be very helpful in kind of framing the question is, instead of asking youth or really other people, what questions do you have? Frame it as, do you have questions? What questions do you have? It's the assumption that they will have questions. And it normalizes kind of that idea. I have an 8-year-old daughter. I can verify she's very much more on screens than I prefer during non-COVID times. There she is, on cue practically. But one of our routines in the evenings is at bedtime, when we're preparing to read stories. Right before we read stories, it's, what questions do you have? Do you have anything that we need to talk about today? And it's the assumption that she does. And sometimes, sometimes they're really important questions about COVID, about life, about, important things. And sometimes, like I told the other group, sometimes she asks, why do unicorns have rainbows and things like that I just don't have answers for. But we have really fascinating conversations about, what the possible answers could be. And that's become part of our routine. And some days there aren't any questions, and some days there are. And when there are, it opens the door for the discussion, because she knows that I assume there are questions. So just kind of that subtle change in language can be very helpful. So instead of asking what questions, it's, do you have questions? Or what questions do you have? Kind of just assuming that they do have questions. And then, the other thing I would just kind of echo is reminding youth and children that, that you're there, and that, when they're ready, it's okay. That, when you approach them, they may not be ready in that moment, but, reminding them that, maybe now's not the right time or the, time that they're ready, but when they're ready, you'll be there. And I think that's really important as well.
Great, thank you. And that's, I think it's just as we kind of started this of how are you doing, we really do want to see how our volunteers and our staff and our youth are doing. I think it's okay to start our 4-H meetings with how is everybody doing? Or, if we can do some meeting, and that's if you're in person or even if you're meeting virtually, start out. And I try when I meet with staff to, okay, either it's at the beginning or the end, giving a chance. How are you guys doing? What, kind of what questions do you have around things that are happening? What can we discuss today? Because it does. And if you look at a lot of the things that are out there, they're showing that, they may not come to you right away, but if you're building that relationship of trust, hopefully they do, or you're going to see a change in that young person and maybe recognize those issues of mental health.
And then Carrie, I would add to that, it would be, even if all you do is get to ask what questions do you have or how you're doing, and that's all the meeting is, that's a successful meeting.
Yes.
That's a very successful meeting because people want to be heard.
Absolutely. I'm gonna chime in and second, third that, I think. I'm not sure what number I am. I know that matters even, I teach the university students and I teach the juniors and seniors. And one of the most common pieces of feedback I got from spring was the fact that I asked how they were doing every class when we went on Zoom. And that's how I start my class normally when we're face-to-face and in person. But they noted that the professors that did that, it made a huge difference. So just simply that, kind of checking in and providing that environment where they can, hear another student say, well, this stinks, or I'm having this trouble, or this is going really great, and, whatever it is. I think that's really appropriate.
Robin asked the question, is it appropriate to say to your kids in your group that they can speak to you in confidence if they need somebody to talk to? Yes. Yeah. Pam, chime in too.
So my only hesitancy with that is yes, but you're a mandated reporter. And I think it's really, really, really important that you tell a youth or a child or a teen that you are a mandated reporter, and that while you want to be someone that they can talk to openly and in confidence, there are certain things that you will have to break confidence on. And I think that's really important to be open about that, because, you don't want someone to tell you something and then you report it and they go, well, I thought that was in confidence. You were like, well, yeah, but legally, and so I think that that's really important, that you're clear that confidence, except for in these certain circumstances under these conditions, in which case you're legally required to break that confidence. And I think it goes to your credibility to be open and honest about that, because if you don't and they find out that you had to report on something, I don't know how you come back from that. So I think that's a critical part in that, talking about confidence and not sharing what's being told. So yes, with that caveat.
And I was just going to say that too, and also letting them know that, letting you also know, I think it's good for them to talk to you, but we also have to remember we're not licensed professionals in this area. And so, we can talk to them and we can give them advice, but they need, if you see a need that they need to get more help, we have some resources that we're going to share with you to be able to know at least where to go if you do see that in a youth. So
And I'll speak just from experience a little bit. Pam is very right. You do have to disclose those things that you have to report. Oftentimes that youth is coming to you because they trust you and they need to tell somebody, and they know. Most of our 4-H kids know the protocols, and they're looking for that person that they have built a relationship with, have seen, week in, week out for X amount of years, and they know that they can come to you and tell you, and you move forward with what needs to happen. And it's not easy, but it saves them and it helps them. So that's just coming from experience.
Thank
And
you.
And Sharon, I'll add on to that too, is that when I'm doing staff training or volunteer training and letting everyone know that we are all mandated reporters, that when we have to say, if a young person comes up to us and says, I have something that I have to tell you, but you have to promise not to tell. And that's when I let everybody know that sometimes in order to help that person, you do have to tell someone.
Yes.
And so, but Robin, back to your original question. Yes. I mean, if they want to confide in you and you can say, I'm going to get you the resources you need, talking around these mental health issues, or if they're feeling stressed and stuff. And then Carrie's going to go right into the resource sharing now. So.
No, you can go ahead.
Right there.
This was a time for us to kind of talk about what's working and, what do people see, what do people not see, and also give you some resources so you have an understanding. So one of the things I'd like to have a brief discussion as we're looking at programming, moving forward with programming, with our youth, either it's club meetings or if we're having events, if we're planning on doing a community service event, that type of thing. What are some of the things that you as volunteers need to be thinking about when you're planning those types of events? And this is related to making sure, that the kids have the best time, the best experience, but also within our regulations, and also thinking about their mental health. So what are some things that we could be thinking about? Do you guys have any? One idea looking at the COVID stuff is making sure you have some kind of icebreaker where they get to know you. And that can be done either virtually or it can be done in person. There's ways to do icebreakers virtually where our youth get to know each other. It's not as good, but I have a lot of friends now across the nation that I consider close friends because I've done a lot of icebreakers with them over the last few months. And I've gotten to know them through virtual. Any other thoughts? Well, and that's something, just to think about too. Something else, we were just curious if anybody has had any anxious parents that are, they're anxious about COVID and maybe coming back together. And was there anything that you did to help ease their mind? Was there, any script or anything that you told them that would help?
We, as a club, had 2 meetings, one on a weeknight and one on a weekend, and invited our club parents to come. No kids, just parents. And we basically outlined all the guidelines that were given to us from 4-H, how each individual project was going to either resume or hold off for the rest of the year. One example, our goat project leader is pregnant. She's like 7 months along right now. We're not doing goats until like January because she's a high risk at this point. And her newborn will be too, because just the nature of having a baby. So we shared that with all the parents and made sure that everybody was on board and knew exactly what to expect from each project going forward. And that helped a lot of the parents be at ease with coming back, or opted it. You know, we have a couple who are like, nope, we're in the high risk category. We're going to sit it out. If you offer something virtually, we'll participate. But that at least gave them the information from UNR, from us, and all of us are on the same page because of that.
That's a great idea. Anyone else?
We have some parents here that do not want their kids back in. So our livestock groups are meeting. I have a very large group that has to split their meetings, but we do have families that just don't feel comfortable coming back, even with the social distancing, even with the mask requirement. My leaders have been great about offering one-on-one experience with the youth. So either the leader will go to their home if it's okay, or they come to the leader's home. And again, it's, you know, the mask is required and most people are fine with that. And the parents feel more comfortable, you know, because it's just that one-on-one, the kids aren't in a big group. I mean, because even 25 is a large group to some people and it makes them uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So those one-on-one options, I think if you have leaders that can do that, I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. All right, I'm going to share another screen with you. So this is a document that we put together. This was a kind of a culmination, but Bill did most of the gathering of the data. But this is a document that, one, it gives you the directions if you do have a child that you feel needs to get help. There's a couple of resources there for you to be able to know how to get them that help. And then it's 2 pages of just websites that you can go to. You know, you've got the general mental health, stress and anxiety, depression, suicide and self-harm. And then there's some things specific to COVID and traumatic stress, etc. So we wanted, you know, while we're not doing training on what are the signs and symptoms right now, but we do have, you know, we wanted to share with you some of those resources that may help you and may help you be able to talk to young people. You know, I think it's okay if you have a discussion even at a club meeting about how are you guys feeling about all of this, but it's good to have some information. You know, we all know it's good to know you need to stay one step ahead of the children. It's usually one, you know, I always say I need to be one step ahead, one lesson ahead. So this just gives you a whole lot of resources that you're, you know, and we're going to share that with everybody. We'll be sending that out in an email with all of those resources. And yep, and we are emailing it definitely. We're going to email all of that out. We're going to email the, you know, the PowerPoints and all of those for people. So, all right. Yeah, and I knew, you know, it'd be really hard to start going through that, but so then just a couple of last things. We're also interested in finding out what are some training needs for, you know, as volunteers, as, I think I meant to say volunteers or personnel and volunteers, but I typed in staff. But, you know, is there a need for training around how do you present, you know, how do you do a virtual meeting and how do you engage youth in the virtual, how do you make it fun for a virtual meeting? Thoughts, ideas? And, you know, oh, go ahead.
I would appreciate programming that talked about how to make a Zoom meeting more engaging. We struggle a lot in the creative writing class. I would always hand out copies of things, and we would read different passages and discuss it. And it's very difficult. So now what we do is we show it up on the screen and the kids take turns reading, but it you know, everybody has to be right on their screen there. And so I'm trying to do the same thing I always did in this new environment, but so it would be great to have some ideas of how to not do the same thing and maybe do something that's better suited for this environment.
Okay, great. Other thoughts? If you got, yeah, training, okay, great. Maria mentioned, you know, anything virtual. The other piece, if you guys come up with an idea, feel free to shoot one of us an email. You know, you can send it to myself, you can send, you know, whoever. If you send it to your county office, they'll send it to us. So definitely, you know, we want those ideas of, you know, or if you think about training around youth mental health, if you happen to see something, you know, let us know, because we're always looking for those ideas. And then, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, one idea that just popped into my head, Robin, that you and others might try. I've seen it work really well with kids, is asking the students or the participants, whoever's in your group, to get something in their home to either write on or discuss on, like kind of scavenger hunty almost within their homes. And then that becomes a discussion piece, as well as potentially something that you could utilize in a creative writing format or something. So just an idea that popped into my head, I thought I would share.
I was gonna say, and I don't have it here because I could, you know, like I have a really cool, like, looks like a quill pen, but it's a, you know, it's an actual pen, and that would be a fun thing to have them talk about that kind of. So, but yeah, definitely. And I think we've heard that from a lot of people, that they would like, I wanted to share this, with you. You know, we have to remember that we have 4-H members looking up to us, and, you know, we know that you know, seeing healthy self-esteem, I mean, we all are stressed as well. And so I think being open and honest about, you know, hey, we're struggling too, but, you know, let's, you know, being honest about those struggles would be great. You know, or is a good thing. And, you know, if they see that, then it builds that trust. And so it's, you know, it's just kind of working through it together with the youth too. So yeah. And then just so you know, so some of our next steps, we are, you know, we have already made a commitment that we're going to be focusing on the topic of mental health, especially around youth mental health, because it is, you know, we have to make it so it's not a taboo topic, and we're going to be talking about it statewide. We're working on trying to get funding to get all of our paid staff, paid faculty and staff, and our adult volunteers trained around youth mental health. There's a couple of programs around like mental health first aid, and there's another one called QPR, and then there's a few others around youth suicide, and all of those pieces that I think would be, to me, we really need to talk about it, you know, and help you to be able to understand some of those signs. And so we've been working on, I know I've submitted a couple of grants to different groups. I haven't been super successful on them yet, but I know that the right one's going to show up, and we're going to get the funding. It's not cheap, but there's a lot of funding right now around youth mental health. So we are looking for, you know, we are looking to that probably in the spring is really where we're looking. You know, if we can do it in the fall, fantastic. You know, we'll do everything. and then creating programming both at the county and the state level for youth around the topic of mindfulness and how do they cope with stress, giving them, you know, we've been discussing, I know Washoe County is looking at doing like a mindfulness camp in the fall, where they're actually, you know, depending on group sizes and what all's happening in the world, but, you know, going to the state 4-H camp and doing, you know, a 2 or 3 day kind of retreat. But, you know, you could be doing things like that at the county level. Maybe you do, you know, a retreat for your youth, giving them, there's actually about 3 pieces of 4-H curriculum that's out there that talk about it. Clark County is actually offering a mental health mindfulness workshop virtually for their for youth. And so I think that's sorry, Nora had shared the list, and I think that's on the list, or it was last time I saw it. So there are some things that could be done, you know, and we want to create some of those opportunities for our youth to help them be able to deal with, you know, give them some coping mechanisms. So anybody else have anything to add to that? Any of our other facilitators have things that they want to add? We're wrapping up now.
I could just add in terms of, it takes a little bit of pre-planning, but way back in the day when interactive video first started, was on the forefront and we were doing things, you know, if you pre-plan, you can toss a ball to someone and say, Pam, I'm tossing you the ball, and Pam catches the ball, you know, because somebody off camera tosses it to her. And that's a way to build in that interactive process. And Jill and I did that several times on some things that we were working with volunteers and youth. So it's just a way to, you know, make those kinds of connections.
I think the only other thing that I would add is don't forget that you have resources as well. If, you know, we're telling you how to help other people, but if you need support and you need assistance, reach out as well. Like, it's totally okay to say, I don't know everything and I need some help, and hey, I need an idea or a strategy or something. But like, that's, you know, don't sit on the, as I tell my students, don't sit on the island by yourself if you have questions. Ask somebody to join you on the island of questions and things, but we're happy to help. So that's my only thing. It's great to have, you know, to pay it forward to your participants and things like that. But if you need assistance and support, reach out as well.
One of the pieces that we didn't cover tonight, but will be in the PowerPoint, is some information about self-care for you as adults. You know, there's some strategies in there, some strategies that I think, you know, because it is important that we maintain our own self-care as well. So anything else people want to add? If not,
you know, I wanted to point, I just wanted to point out one other thing that I think about a lot, and that is my observation of this whole, our reaction to this has been that we as adults and volunteers have to take the impetus to, you know, learn how to use Zoom and learn how to do everything virtually. You know, our kids are, especially our teens, are experts at these kinds of things. And we have always been about youth empowerment and youth engagement and youth voice. And I have seen that drop off almost entirely. So re-engaging those youth and giving them those opportunities to take the lead. For example, a couple of your livestock kids, Carolyn, could organize a show. You could organize something where they're doing it virtually, and maybe they judge each other, and you know, you have to you know, put the parameters together. And this is, you know, you could do a demonstration contest, you could do a speech contest, you could do all kinds of different things online, but you don't have to lead that. And I think we know from research that giving kids that empowerment really helps them. So in this time we're talking about this engagement and this mental health, I think, them losing that opportunity, those opportunities to actually lead can also lead to some of those mental health challenges, like losing control, losing that self-efficacy. So that's something that we really need to work on as well as an organization.
Great, thank you.
Just to chime in, our club hosted a virtual animal show. It wasn't just strictly livestock. We had we had 15 participants, and we opened it up to all the clubs in our county, but it was our livestock leaders and our livestock club members who judged all the animals. And we had everything from like chickens to dogs. We had a turtle that somebody entered. We had a couple horses, a couple goats. So we got, and this was very early on. But again, the virtual burnout is there. But we did do that as a club and got the kids involved, not only in participating and submitting pictures of their animals, but also being the judges. And I put it together in this PowerPoint and sent it out to all of our club members. And I was pleased with how it turned out at the time. So it was a fun thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Great ideas. All right, anything else? All right, well, thank you, those of you that joined us. I really appreciate it. I will be getting I'm going to send the resources now. We won't have, it takes about a week to get the videos ready to send out, but I'll get the documents out to everybody so that you have those at least, so, but as things come up, if you guys have questions, if you have thoughts, please feel free to send those, just send them to one of us, send them to your county. As I said, this is a topic we're going to be talking about a lot. So thank you and have a great rest of the night.